How's it going, guys? MrHulthen here. And today we're going to take a look at some recent information that's been searching its way around the internet regarding the endings of Mass Effect 3. But before we jump into it, if you're planning on getting some official Bioware merch, be that Mass Effect related or Dragon Age related, remember to use my personal link, which you can find in the description below. Also, don't forget to use the code BWMH for that juicy 20% discount. Yay. It only has 10 uses, so just make sure to use it while you still can. Shilling over. Alright, so this new information comes from the former lead writer over at Bioware, Drew Karpyshyn, a name that most of you are probably somewhat familiar with right now. And if his name does not ring a bell, then, well, let's just say that he was in charge of the awesome storylines in both Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. Of course, Drew is a well-known writer that's worked on some huge things aside from Mass Effect, as an example, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And recently, Drew sat down and did an AMA over on Reddit, AMA being a short form for Ask Me Anything. Here, fans showered him with questions, and not surprisingly, there were several questions about Mass Effect. One of these questions was naturally about Mass Effect 3's ending, with the user KateCo asking, how would you have concluded the Mass Effect series? And here's what Drew responded with. As for Mass Effect, we had some very rough ideas planned out. Basically, it involved luring the Reapers through the mass relays, then detonating the entire network to wipe them out, but also destroying/damaging the relays and isolating every galactic community from the others. But we still had to figure out a lot of the details, and there were some issues with that option, like what would we do in the next series of games? Alright, so to be perfectly honest with you guys, when I was reading this AMA, I for a second thought that Drew would mention maybe the dark energy plot. But instead, here we get a relatively simple description of what some of the original plans were. Now, some of you are probably scratching your heads right now, because this doesn't sound much different from the endings that we actually did get in Mass Effect 3. Since the relays do kind of detonate, especially in the original ending before the extended cut, and it resulted in the same dilemma that Drew is mentioning here. As the mass relays were destroyed, all the star systems were cut off from each other. Again, at least before the extended cut. However, what I think Drew is basically saying here is that in this original ending, the races of the galaxy somehow found a way to detonate the mass relay network and killing only the Reapers. Sort of like a proximity bomb that goes off whenever they jump through the relays. This would have made for a more practical ending, to be honest, and it wouldn't really have been that dark, since all you would have done is to basically cut off the so-called highways of the galaxy. Now, the most interesting part of this entire AMA, I think, is that Drew mentions that they were actually thinking about how this would affect the next series of games. And now, since this original idea is very reminiscent of the ending we got, it's not too far-fetched to think that the next story would involve the galaxy rebuilding. We see in the extended cut, for example, that at some point the galaxy has reconnected again, but it's never specified how long after the ending this is. Again, Drew doesn't necessarily say that the next games would be about rebuilding the galaxy, but it would kind of be logical to assume because of how the trilogy ended, and how the next story would have to build upon the endings of Mass Effect 3. You know, whereupon rebuilding the galaxy would just make sense. At least to me. Now, since Drew didn't actually work on Mass Effect 3, it's possible that there were no plans of continuing the franchise after the trilogy ended. We saw signs of this with Mass Effect Andromeda, as placing the story in another galaxy was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, so as not to have to involve any of the ending choices into the story. But now, as we've seen from both the teaser trailer and the official poster, the next game will indeed be set in a post-Reaper Milky Way galaxy, which makes me wonder, maybe Bioware are springboarding off of this original idea of cutting off the mass relay network, which in that case could lead us to a story where we have to reconnect the galaxy once again. But the big question here is, will the next game take our choices into consideration? Hopefully we'll get some answers on that in due time. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. And a big thank you to all my channel members. You guys are awesome. Oh, and if you ever want to just hang out, head over to Twitch and drop a follow if you ever Go to Twitch, that is. Link is down below. Have a great day, guys. MrHulthen, signing out.